The Department of Public Safety manages the operations for the divisions of fire, police, and support services. A team of over 3,400 dedicated men and women come to work every day to ensure that Columbus remains one of the safest cities in the country. Everyone in this city has a story to tell. Here are some of theirs.
Hello, I'm Khari Enaharo, host of this month's edition of Safety Net. Safety Net is a program designed to highlight the good works performed by the men and women in the Columbus Police and Fire Divisions. On today's show, we're going to be talking to a young man who found his way from the back of a cruiser to the front. Officer LeVon Morefield, how are you?
I'm good, sir.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
You have an interesting background. You've been around for a long time. You grew up in Columbus, is that right?
Yes, sir. I grew up in the North Linden area of Columbus, so right off of Core and Cleveland Avenue. So all of this is like my old neighborhood, and I used to walk down to this little filler station here and get Sour Patch for like 50 cents. Yeah, so this is a Core place here. This is where I grew up at until I was about 15 years old, and this is a street that I learned how to play football, which ended up taking me all the way to college. I learned how to play basketball. We played tag in this neighborhood. We played hide and go seek. We played a lot of stuff like that. As you know, just like these kids walking here, I was once one of these young kids walking.
Tell me about your early life.
Growing up, unfortunately, grew up inner city, poverty-stricken, things like that. Both of my parents were unfortunately addicted to drugs. Crack cocaine was a drug of choice, unfortunately, and more of a sickness type of thing. They were never in my life. My brother that I grew up with, me and him both were born addicted to crack cocaine. Just a really, really rough start to life. The crime that happens in the area, you're either going to become a victim of it, or you're going to start partaking in the crime. My role models at the time, who were my brothers, my older cousins that I lived with, they were heavily into crime, heavily into committing illegal activity. So, I started doing what my role models did, which was unfortunately partake in illegal activity.
How old were you when you started participating in these activities?
I was 9 years old, roughly, and in the third grade. So, and
up until what age?
Up until 14 years of age. So, and what happened? There was a family member who was my legal guardian. She just kind of told me, in so many words, hey, I'm not gonna, keep feeding your greedy ASS, so you gotta figure it out. And by figure it out, she meant, hey, you gotta go out there and get it yourself, because I'm not gonna do it for you.
What happened from like 14 to 17?
Well, when I was 14, that's actually where things started to change for the better. I was arrested by an officer who's still in the department today, Officer Ewing. What happened, I was driving a vehicle and it had a firearm in it, so just like, obviously had no intentions, but that's just something that, most people in inner cities do, is carry firearms with them. You'd like to think for protection, things like that. And this officer, instead of, scolding me, instead of, treating me badly, he was actually treating me very good. And long story short, during my interaction with this officer, I learned a lot from him, and it actually changed my life. It's actually what led to me wanting to be a police officer, just because of some of the things he said to me when I was in the back of his cruiser. What are you good at? Those type of things. And I told him, I'm good at football. And he said, well, you can't play football if you're in jail. So you got to figure out a way to try to use football as a vehicle to get you out of this neighborhood. He also told me, I really don't think you're a bad kid. As a result, I'm going to try to help you out. By helping out, I think he, whatever he said to the magistrate during the court date, she ended up dismissing the charge. Here we have a male white officer who, not only was he friendly to me, but he helped me out, and he ultimately changed my life. Something that he said to me as he was leaving is, hey, you got a second chance, you're not gonna get a third, don't disappoint me. And it meant something to me, because he was one of the first male figures in my life who showed me that he cared, and for him to be a police officer just blew my mind. Had I not become a cop, who knows, to tell you on the street, I'd probably be where my brother is, where my cousin who I grew up with is, which is in prison. And if not, it could have very easily been in a worse situation where, I'd be in a graveyard or cemetery. So
this is your calling?
Yes, sir. I wanted to be in a position to do for somebody else as Officer Ewing did for me, which is give back and, try to reach some of these troubled inner city youth and let them know, hey, there's life outside of, the situation you're in. There's life outside of this neighborhood. Because when I was growing up, I used to look at folks like, you can't relate to me. You don't know what it's like to struggle. You don't know what it's like to starve. You don't know what it's like to have parents who love crack cocaine more than they love their children, and I always had a chip on my shoulder. And that was, something that Matt Ewing was able to break down.
How are you as a police officer, though?
Well,
how are you able to impact particularly young African Americans? How are you able to do that?
Just by giving them my testimony, because a lot of them are like, hey, they see this uniform, they see police officers, they think we're all perfect. They think we grew up silver spoon. They think we grew up both parents in the suburbs somewhere and had nice lives, and that's not always the case. A lot of us do, which is a great thing, and they're still able to impact just as much as anybody else. However, something I always do is relate to them. Hey, I know what it's like to be you, and they're like, get out of here. You can never be me. And then I start giving them some of my background, and they can't believe it. They're wild. They're like, holy cow, you were arrested before? And when I tell them, yeah, I was, unfortunately I was, but however, that was a positive interaction with the police that changed my life, and I'm here to do the same thing. That's why I do this job, is to try to give back and help out and make sure you don't end up in the system, make sure you don't end up dead out here. And it's all about education, things like that. And I'm not talking about school education, but educating yourself. Hey, you don't have to live the way you're living, type of thing. So
there is a perception, particularly in the African American community.
Absolutely.
And there's a perception, particularly as it relates to some of the problems that have been happening between the police and the community. How important is it for you or for African Americans to join the police department? I know the numbers have dropped, but the objective is to try to get more people to understand the importance of it. How important is your role, and how important is it to get more African Americans on the department?
I think it's very important, and I think no matter how much we do from our end as far as recruiting, as far as our division, I think we have to do a better job as a community educating the youth, especially the inner city African American Black youth, that it's not a bad thing to be the police. We're the Black culture is one of the only cultures, maybe the only culture, where it's usually a bad thing to be the police. And that's where it's wrong, because it's not a bad thing to be the police, and that's something that we have to educate these youth on. It's not a bad thing to be the police.
Why is it not a bad thing?
Because for a number of reasons. For one, it's a great career. For two, you have an opportunity to impact, your culture, whoever's culture. You have an opportunity to impact people in the city, in any city, being a police officer. With me being from the inner city and also growing up on the other side of it, I think I'm able to relate, to some of the things that a lot of people are going through in the inner city. Therefore, I think just one example, I think I probably perceive threats different, and I'm not skilled in defensive tactics or anything like that, so I don't want to get too much into that. However, I understand that, a lot of people, they're, if they're out here carrying pistols, things like that, I understand why they're doing it, and it's not always to cause harm to other people or to cause harm to the police. It's because they literally feel the need that, hey, I have to protect myself just in case somebody tries to rob me, things like that. I understand that feeling because I was in their situation.
So now some have a fear because they've had maybe a criminal background. They think they may not be able to pass the test. What do you say to those who have that desire, but they see these barriers, they believe as barriers? What do you say to them?
I would say reach out to the recruiting unit. That's what I did myself. I was put in contact with an officer who's retired now, Officer Washington, who went down the list with me and let me know, based off of the things that happen in your juvenile history, they're not disqualifiers. So, however, some of them are. It's clear in black and white. There's no gray area on it. If you meet these requirements, then you can still be a police officer. You're probably gonna have to fight for it, which is what I had to do. I had to go through a bunch of things. It took me longer to, become employed with the Columbus Division of Police, but it's something I wanted to do, and I never gave up, kept after it, and as a result, I'm finally here and been doing well since I have been here.
Do you have any closing thoughts or things that you'd want to say to those African Americans in particular who are contemplating, or those Latinos who may be contemplating wanting to join the force? What would be your message?
Outside of the the lucrative benefits that this career has to offer, at the end of the day, you are doing great work as far as helping out the community. You can be that change. One person's not going to change the world, but at the end of the day, you have to be that change you want to see. You can make a great living for yourself. Here I come from, a background where I had nothing, and I already have accomplished more than anybody in my family ever has. And this career gives me the opportunity to keep building on that, to make sure my kids will never go without. If you don't have a college education, this is an opportunity to get your college education paid for, and then there's no limit. You could get a doctorate's degree and it would all be paid for. One of the biggest things to take away from it is you can really impact people, as I was impacted by that officer. He changed my life, and something I understood early on is you can't change everybody's life, but even if you could just impact one enough to make it so, hey, they end up becoming a law-abiding citizen rather than becoming a prisoner in the prison system, makes that, I think that will mean the world to anybody.
As a member of the group called the Columbus Civilian Community Board, we are very, very strong on pushing for more African Americans on the force, and particularly in those African American communities where we believe you'll bring a greater sensitivity. It doesn't mean it's bad. So I want to thank you for your work, and I appreciate all that you do.
Thank you for having me.
Stay strong, young brother.
Thanks,
appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Officer Morefield's story is a powerful one, and his commitment to the city's neighborhood is directly influenced by his past. Despite his troubled upbringing, Officer Morefield was able to find a home with the Columbus Division of Police and do his best to impact his community in the same way that a police officer did for him many years ago. Before we close, a message from Mayor Andrew Ginther.
Hello, I'm Andy Ginther, Mayor of the City of Columbus. Part of the appeal of Columbus is how safe it is for residents and visitors. Our first responders are well-trained professionals, ready for every situation, from violence to medical emergencies. They are also experts in community outreach. We strive to make our fire and police departments reflect the beautiful diversity of our community. A career in public safety can be rewarding, and we are reaching out to people of various backgrounds to consider joining our efforts. Public safety is a top priority of my administration. Every person in every neighborhood deserves to feel safe.
If you're interested in becoming a member of the Columbus Division of Police, you can give them a call at 614-645-4642, or you can go to the web at columbus.gov/police-recruitment. Thanks for watching. I'm Khari Enaharo, wishing you a good day and hoping you join us next time on Safety Net.